You know all that he's done as a basketball coach. We could be here for a long time about that. Let me tell you about some things about Scott that you don't know. He is a tremendous father. He's a tremendous husband. 2 days after he cut down the nets this year at the Final Four, I called him on my cell phone driving into my neighborhood to congratulate him. And then I said, hey, by the way, do you have a minute? Because the lady next door to us is a huge Baylor fan. And she just got diagnosed with a very, very aggressive form of breast cancer. And she just needs some encouragement in her life. Do you have just 30 seconds to say hi to her? And he said, man, go get her on the phone. And knocked on the door and handed her the phone. She could see on the cell phone Scott Drew. And literally she just started crying. And Coach was so good to speak. Our words matter. Our words matter. And his words that day to her were so encouraging and uplifting. He took the time to pray for her healing. It really meant a great deal to her and her family. They every time I see him, she still brings that up. So it tells me that the balance and the perspective that Scott has in his life. So phenomenal basketball coach. Took over a program that literally everyone probably told him, why are you doing this, when he took over that Baylor program. But God's arms aren't too short, and they've delivered mightily for Scott. So Scott, with that in mind, let's talk about those early years at Baylor. Like, what were you up against? Just remind us of the challenges early in that job.
Well, we had 5 to 7 scholarship players our first year. And when I say 5 to 7, because academically we had a couple ineligible we had to file waivers for. And so that means half our team were walk-ons. So first we had to go find the walk-ons. And I was really excited. We had a big walk-on tryout, and we looked all over campus. We didn't see anyone over 6'2". And we have a walk-on tryout. The gym's packed. There's a lot of size, athleticism. We call them over, and we're like, all right, what year are you at Baylor? Where do you live? And a hand goes up and says, wait, we got to go to school to be on the team? So we had people drive down from Dallas, from Houston, from junior colleges. They thought you'd just be on the team, not go to school. Hence, all the talented, athletic-looking guys left, and we were left with the 6-foot walk-ons. So it was a walk-on's dream. You could not only be on the team, but you got to play. So as Jimmy was calling games, and we're 40-point dogs, and they got 5 McDonald's All-Americans on the court, and we got 4 walk-ons on the court. We weren't very good coaches that year. And then it took some time to bring in, it really was our 3rd year, because we took the job at the end of August. And I wish, and this is something, one of our players wrote a book called The Leftovers, and I know our staff did as good a job as we thought we could at the time, but just hearing about mentally the challenges dealing with a player's death on the team, I wish we'd have done even a better job, and I wish we knew more about mental illness and things like that we could have helped our guys even more, those that stayed. But at the same time, those guys allowed us to get to the championship. And one of the best things, and again, a blessing is God's platform when you win a championships. It's His glory. We know it's only possible through Him, and having an opportunity to be on the phone in situations like you asked, those are, just unbelievable opportunities you're blessed with. At the same time, we had a victory parade, and we had all the past players at Baylor be able to lead, and they walked in the parade first with their kids or family or whoever, because they laid the foundation, and it was great seeing those guys honored, especially during the lean years where the second year we won 1 conference game, and then it was the 3rd year where we really started to change things because the talent level had picked up at that point, and seeing them get honored and their kids be able to be recognized at the front of the parade was unbelievable, and something that was truly a blessing. So after that, it was our 3rd year where we had no non-conference. So it took 3 years for our sanctions to finalize, and so you go in the locker room and tell your guys, well, we got good news. We can play in the postseason. The bad news is we can't play a non-conference. And with that, if anyone's ever in that situation, we're the only school, I think, still to date that's gone through that, so we can help you out with what to do and not to do. I tried every practice drill all the way up until our first game in January. But that was probably the most challenging time coaching from the standpoint. As we know, in the highways in Texas, it's 75 miles an hour. You get on the ramp, you're going 20, 30, 40 to try to get caught up. And that's what when you practice that long, you think you're going to be ready to play, you're going to be good, and you come out there, and the first thing you do is we were at Lubbock playing Texas Tech, and it was nice. The Big 12, they gave us the bye that year to open up, so we needed another extra couple days to practice, right? And so our first game, you come out, and we're so fired up. We look great. It's like 9-9 early in the game, and then all of a sudden, there go the legs and everything. And the first 4 or 5 games, you're so far behind everybody else. And that was really hard for our guys after practicing so long and then not having success on the court. But we finished the season on a high note, and then 5 years later, we have a NCAA tournament pairing party because Joe Lenardi said we're in, and if he says you're in, you got to be in, right?
Right.
So we invited everybody, and we have a packed Farrell Center. We've gone to the tournament once since 1950, and that was in 1988. And you know what? They're having the seedings and the brackets, and they go through everybody. We get down the last bracket, and they ain't called their name. I hadn't really thought of that yet. You know, like, what are we doing if we're not in? You know, Joe said we were in, all right? So, I mean, but up to this point, I'd never heard of a team having everybody there and not being in, you know? So they called us last, and I think that was the most I've ever celebrated, even more than the national championship, because I had no idea what to tell everybody that was there, you know, we're not in. But anyway, from there, things really sped up, went to a couple Elite Eights, and God always has a plan. I can tell you, when we made it to the Final Four this year, we appreciated it so much more, because when you get to the Elite Eight in 2010 and the Elite Eight in 2012, and you lose to the 2 champions, Duke and Kentucky, but you're close and you don't get in to that Final Four, it really becomes even more of a blessing when you do achieve it. And obviously, once we got in the Final Four, we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, and we were blessed to really play well on championship weekend.
Your man-to-man defense is very important, by the way. I didn't mean to say that.
Hey, can you tell he's a defensive-oriented guy, by the way? I mean,
yeah, man.
You can tell right away if a guy likes offense or defense. You had great offense. I love how you spaced the court. Your defense was phenomenal. Jimmy's straight defense, you know.
That's all I
you
care
played
about.
offense this year?
I never shot when I was in college, so I had to play defense. Scott, looking back on those 18 years, give us 2 or 3 times where you really saw God impact, move, change your program.
Well, first and foremost, it's every year. I mean, everyone knows in coaching you have ups and downs every year, and week to week, game to game. So, I mean, each year you can show how God moved in your program. But probably one of the bigger years was when we had gone to Elite Eight in 2012. And then in 2013, we had a highly regarded recruiting class. We started the season off well, and then things kind of fell apart, and we went to the NCAA or the NIT, and we ended up winning an NIT championship. So finished on a real high note. But then the next year, after you win NIT championship, you're expected to get back to the tournament. We started out great. I think we're up to 7th or 9th in the country. We'd beaten Kentucky, and things are rolling, and we get into league play, and we were 2-8. And so the wheels had completely fallen off. And in the Big 12, I mean, it's really hard to win on the road. Any conference, it's hard to win on the road. But as you know, when you're 2-8, the magic number for our conference, you got to get to 9-9. If you're 9-9, you're probably good if you had a good non-conference. And so that's a tall feat to finish out the season. And at that point, spiritually, it was like we had a revival on the team, and we had, on the way to a game, we had 5 players get baptized, and it was amazing just how the spiritual transformation on the team, and we ended up finishing 9-9. So we went 7-1 down the stretch. We ended up going to the championship game of the Big 12 tournament, and then ended up playing in the Sweet 16. But spiritually, when you're 2-8, I remember I told Pastor Brewer, and I'd forgotten about it, but he since shared it several times, and I know there was a couple articles written, and I said, I might be a terrible coach, and we might not win another game, but if any of our players leave without knowing Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, then we really lost. And I think it was after that point, again, we just started pouring more into our guys spiritually, and to see that transformation. And again, when you see 5 guys baptized on the way to the game, and the ironic thing is we went 7-1. The only game we lost was on that trip, and it was on to Texas, and we probably should have won that game. But you know what? We won the game of life, and that was by far more important, because when we know we get to heaven, God care less how many championships, how many Coach of the Years, how many players went to the NBA. How many of our players do we see up in heaven? And how many family members do we see up in heaven is all that really matters.
Well said. Well said. How did you come up with the culture of joy that we heard so much about during March Madness, and what is it? Like, I never really heard you talk about it.
So you're always evolving as a coach, and you're trying to do a better job. And to me, it's always Pete Carrill's book, The Smart Take from the Strong. And Dabo Sweeney, I think, has a great culture, and I was talking to him about his culture of joy. And it's what our program implements and tries to do, but I think just saying a culture of joy is easy for the players to always remember Jesus, others, yourself. It's an easy way to say it, and obviously we want to be joyful. So with that, again, as coaches, we can have all the great terminology, but it's what you emphasize. And our whole program is set up in such a way. And being at Baylor, the largest Baptist school in the nation, we're allowed to do things that public schools can't do. So I know if I was at a public school, the first thing I'd do is talk to Tony Bennett and Rick Barnes and coaches like that. What are you able to do? What are the best practices? And find ways that you can impact your program. If you're at a Christian school, I know I was talking to Richie McKay, and I'd get to Christian coaches and ask, how are you and what do you do with your program? And I mean, everything in our program, and I'm going to get off tangent here, but everything is Christ-centered, and you start practice in prayer, you end practice in prayer. Every one of our staff meetings begins in prayer. We have game day chapel services that are done by, the home games are done by Pastor Mark Weibel, who's used to coach at Baylor and is associate pastor in town. Our road games are actually, and probably my favorite part of our season is when our assistant coaches do the chapel services. In fact, one of our assistant coaches shared this year that he almost didn't come to Baylor because he didn't want to do chapel services. And now we call him Reverend, because Reverend Brooks talks so long in those chapel services, but he's phenomenal. And again, I know coaches really have a pulse of the team and what they're going through in their chapel services. I've grown spiritually maybe more from that than anything else. And then Pastor Brewer does he's there every day in practice, and he's our character coach. And Tommy Kyle and Nations of Coaches, if you don't have a character coach, I'm telling you, that's a game changer. And Pastor Brewer's been unbelievable for our program. But he does a coach's Bible study once a week, and then a player's Bible study, and then he even does the GAs and managers, because we got an army. So it's great that he has an opportunity to reach out to them. And then we've tried to do things with our past players that are overseas and wherever, and have a Bible study if they want to be a part of it. And so, I mean, everything we do is Christ-centered. We have no cursing policy at practice. So, I mean, you cuss, you got push-ups, and we all cuss at different times. You can see our stronger players, they cuss a little bit more. But so like our whole program's set up that way. But a culture of joy, talking to Dabo, was a great way to remember it. One thing that we did is our players, the film Doesn't Lie, I heard that from a great speaker and book writer. And so one thing we do is we actually show joy interviews this year. And what we do is we'd clip a player giving God the the honor and glory, and then talking about his teammates. And we'd start film that way where we show a couple clips of, and then it became, so you're talking well of your teammates. Well, the next day you're talking well of your teammates, and it's expected. It's like, well, you didn't show my interview up there. I was, so I think that was, in fact, Pastor Brewer's in charge of the Joy Award every game, and they get a candy bar. Doesn't even have to be supersized. It's just their favorite. And anyway, we reward that.
As the success started to come for you at Baylor, how did you handle it? How did it change you? How did it impact your relationship with God?
Well, I mean, one thing that you said today, work is so important to us, and before games, I'm sure we all pray, and the next 22 hours of the day are more important, and I got to do a better job in that facet. But I definitely know that our staff is. I mean, we know all the blessings come from him, and it's his platform, and so it's easier to stay humble when you know where it all comes from. So that's something that we'll always do. Pride cometh before the fall, and I'm not a smart enough coach to ever get egotistical. So I know it's only by God that we've been blessed.
Scott, what if there's someone in the audience right now that they don't know Jesus? They're here and they're hearing about Jesus. They're hearing about the Christian walk. Just tell me your faith journey. I don't think I've ever asked you that. Yeah. Like, when did you accept Jesus as your Savior, and how did that go down?
Well, I was blessed to be born in a Christian home. In second grade, I accepted Christ. But, you know, it wasn't a personal relationship till you get older in life. And I think my brother had some heart issues when he was younger, and had tachycardia, and through his heart surgeries, I mean, spiritually, he was rock solid. And I guess when life or death situations bring you to that quicker. To me, it was with my dad, my brother, and I when we coached athletes in action tours after I'd gotten out of college, where I began my own personal relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's like I love to invest. I love to win. God's wired me to be competitive. Everyone in this room is obviously competitive, or you're not in coaching. But at the end of the day, if you take a step back, and we do all this for 80 years, and in coaching, let's make it 60 or 70, because them 18 to 22-year-olds wear us out, right? So, or whatever age. But why not win for eternity? You know, and at the end of the day, we are all going to die. There's no one in this room that's not going to die. And again, if you don't know where you're going, why are we playing the game? I mean, you play to win. And again, the great thing about winning the game of life is you don't have to earn it. There's nothing you can do to earn it. It's strictly by grace. It's a present given to us. So I know that if you haven't accepted Christ, Tommy Kyle and his group would love to talk with you, and I promise it'll be the best victory you ever have. And when you're in heaven for eternity, I always tell our players, you know, when you sprain that ankle and you get in that, put your foot in that ice bucket or cold tub or whatever, like, that's not a good feeling. Hell is a lot worse than that. You don't need that for eternity, all right? So, again, if you don't know where you're going, and that's where, as you were saying, in coaching, so often that we think you go to clinics, and I remember when I'd go to a clinic, like, if I get one out of bounds play, if I get one play doesn't change games. What changes games and what coaching is you talked about Coach K, leadership, culture, how you run your program. I mean, I know John Wooden was big on this in practice. You do your job in the game. The players play. And my dad always taught me this, and that is, I mean, our job's done in practice in the game. They're out there doing what you've taught them and gone over. And it's the same thing with the game of life. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're winning the game of life and we have a relationship with Jesus Christ, when our players have hills and valleys, we're going to be able to better comfort, support, and lead and guide them than we are if we're a mess. So Again, Jimmy and I, us winning today is someone renewing the relationship with Christ, someone coming to know the relationship with Christ, and then you having a chance to impact so many people out there, because at the end of the day, again, that's all that matters.
Scott, these guys and ladies with us today as coaches involved, they're stressed, man. They are fighting for life balance. I can't think of anyone to ask that question any more than you, because I can't even imagine how much you've been pulled just in the last 2 months. But how do you stay balanced as a husband and a dad with all that you have on your plate?
And again, that's where I'm not smart enough to figure things out. I always we go the first Final Four this year. I called a bunch of coaches that have been the Final Four. What'd you wish you knew when you went to the Final Four? When we won the national championship, what'd you wish you'd known that you know now? When we were number 1 seed for the first time, what'd you wish you knew back then? It's the same thing. I would talk to coaches that you trust, respect. Richie McKay's one of the guys that I talked with. Dabo has unbelievable balance in what they do. But there's a million ways to skin a cat. We're all competitive, so you can be there at 7 o'clock and work to 7 o'clock at night, and you can do it certain programs ways. But at the end of the day, what is winning in life? And if you have no family, if you're not a good father or mother, and you're not a good parent, you're not a good spouse, is that really worth your career? And then the people you're leading, they're watching that. And then what are they doing? They go out and let's say they make their dream of the WNBA, NBA, and they have no balance. I mean, because at the end of the day, they're watching a lot more than they're listening. So we can tell them what to do, but they're going to learn from what we actually do. And yes, we're going to work hard, but I think it has to be done in a balanced way and in a way that honors and pleases God. And again, we can all get better. There's no perfect game. None of us are perfect, and we're constantly striving for that. But I can tell you that working hard doesn't win you a championship. Balance gives you a chance to be successful on and off the court, which if your players have balance, I mean, they got to manage themselves in the classroom and on the court. They can't be just on the court.
Let's talk basketball just a little bit. It's not on my list of questions, but you just won a national championship. We probably all can learn a little bit.
Let me guess, it's about defense, huh?
Yeah, I'm talking about defense first of all. You changed your defense in the last 2 or 3 years. Was that personnel driven? What got you to that decision? And if you could say, our man-to-man defense stands for these 3 things, what was it? What do you want it to be?
Well, I think first and foremost, a good coach, my dad always shared with me, and I believe 100%, you adapt to your personnel. And we had a lot of, at the 3, we started a 6'8" guy, we had a 6'10" guy, a 6'11" guy. So, I mean, if you have big wings, it's hard in man-to-man, especially if you're not switching, for them to keep up with a bunch of guards. But you play that zone, and now they're shooting over length, you're getting long rebounds. I mean, Syracuse has shown how effective that can be. So we've always adapted, and I use the example. I know we're getting older. People might not even know who Shaq is anymore, but you got Shaq. You're going to play inside out, all right? And nowadays game, everyone wants to shoot all these threes, but again, you have to do what your personnel dictates. Now, who you recruit's up to you, but we're always going to adjust what we do on the personnel, and that's tough. It's like a teacher. You're teaching algebra. If you have the same curriculum every year, it's real easy. But if one year it's algebra, one year it's geometry, the next year it's physics, I mean, you're reinventing the wheel, and there's always carryover, but you're constantly changing and tweaking. I mean, I look at Coach Huggins. They had press Virginia, then they went some zone, now it's pack. I mean, good coaches are constantly changing to their personnel. As far as our man, limiting it to 3 things might be tough. I can tell you that there is a lot of personnel in that too. We had 3 of the top 15 defensive players in the nation. So when you have 3 of the top 15 defensive players, that helps a lot. But we try to keep it on the side. We try to apply pressure and get guys dribbling rather than having that ball being reversed quick. And we try not to let it get in the post. So, I mean, if you're keeping on the side, you're pressuring, and you're not letting them pass it inside, hopefully they're just dribbling over there. And that allows us to load up and play 5-on-3.
When you look back at that national championship game against Gonzaga, the night before, what were your thoughts as a coach as you viewed that game?
When I first started coaching, I remember the first year I took over from my dad, we played IUPUI in the championship game. And up to that point, I thought a head coach needed to watch more film than the other head coach to be more prepared, right? So I remember staying up almost all night watching, and we end up losing at the buzzer. And then I get to Baylor, and since I saw Richie, we were talking about Tony, I'll share this. So we play Washington State at home, and I remember we lose a close one, and I asked him afterwards, I was like, so how many games you watch of us? And I'm thinking he's going to say 5, 4. Nah, I really just watch us. I didn't watch. You didn't watch us? I was like, you didn't see any? I'm like, I watched 80 of your games. I mean, so at that point, I decided sleep was more important because if you're not fresh, now I'm going to be prepared. But at the end of the day, I think if we're fatigued to where we can't function, and I tell our staff that too, who's ever has scout and whatnot. I mean, to stay up and get 3 hours sleep. That's not ideal. We wouldn't want our players doing that, so why would we do that?
You've mentioned your dad a couple of times. What was it like growing up in the home of a coach, and how's that impacted you today?
Well, I told my dad, I share this when I talk to people, but the biggest compliment I think you can ever give your dad is following his footsteps. And he was unbelievable, involving us, always allowing the gym to be open. I mean, growing up, I thought we had an indoor basketball gymnasium because we play in there, basketball, dodgeball, football, baseball, but we were always able to be up there unless Mike Lightfoot and the guys would kick us out of Bethel College. So growing up with the gym was awesome. But I remember the first memory I had with probably going back to his LSU days was recruiting, and we're coming back late at night, and I remember it was so cool because I got to see the sirens, and it was so nice of him to get pulled over for speeding so I could see the sirens late at night, you know. But going on recruiting trips, he'd have me keep stats on players, and you just allowed us to be a part of it. And I remember staying up and waking up, and when they'd get back, before social media, you didn't know who won the game, and he'd come in. I remember, so we win, and just being a part of everything.
Yeah. The impact he had on you this year, I'm sure was tremendous, as it is every year. What was that feeling like with him after you won the national championship?
Well, it was really great that the NCAA allowed us up to that point. We didn't get a chance to spend any time with our family, and what I mean is you couldn't interact, hug, touch, love, whatever. So once championship was over, then we were able to spend time with our family. It was great to embrace him. Obviously, my brother, my dad, and I will during season were able to talk. And there's nothing better than, as we all know, when you go to clinics, usually it's more clinic talk, and it's like it sounds great, but when you really study that team, you don't see much of that. And when you have a dad as a coach, he tells you really what is important and everything that's important, because they don't ever hold back. And the other good thing is they can do it in a way where, when other people give us advice, sometimes we get defensive. They're able to approach it in a way where you're more receptive, and that's probably my fault on being defensive when other people give us advice we don't seek sometimes. But with them, it's great to be able to do that, and iron sharpens iron, and they know me and they know what I like, and so they're able to give advice too that matters. So I mean, if you don't have a mentor, you don't have someone that you can have watch your team or help you, and I can tell you a great thing that I would do if I didn't have my dad, and even some years I've done this. I remember Dan Peters, one of the years that we were struggling, he was fighting for his life with cancer. And I had him start watching our games and then giving me feedback. And it was not only helpful for me, but I think it was helpful for him. And Mike Heidemann used to coach with me, and he retired, and I did the same thing. So everybody knows coaches that have retired, and I can tell you it's something when you retire, I know it would be great if someone asked you for your opinion and gave you something to help still pour in and help, and at the end of the day, you benefit so much. So that's something for people that don't have a family member or somebody. That right there is better than any out of bounds play or press break or anything like that.